Did you know it's been about 8 months since the last general Nintendo Direct? Yeah, you probably did, since it seems to be the only thing the Nintendo community wants to talk about these days. What started out as a fun presentation to get some cool new game announcements has become an obsession for some people, a fixation that appears to have overtaken their ability to discuss anything else. It feels like every week a new rumor comes out about when the long-awaited next full-scale Direct will finally take place, but then that rumored date comes and goes with nothing to show for it. As the company cuts back on the frequency of their digital showcases, many fans have been left wondering if Nintendo has forgotten about Nintendo Direct. Could it be that the gaming giant is indeed moving away from the branding, or is this just another sign of the ever-changing gaming ecosystem? Let's find out. The very first time the Nintendo Direct branding was used came all the way back in October 2011. Featuring the then president of Nintendo of America, Reggie Fils-Aimé, the video wasn't exactly what I would call a spectacle. He stood in front of a blank white screen with no background music and a constant slight hissing noise coming from his microphone while announcing a Shrek-themed thriller music video would be coming to Nintendo 3DS. What a time to be alive. 2 months later, a Japan-exclusive Nintendo Direct would release, this time starring the late great president of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata. Once again, the production value was pretty low, but this Direct was a definite step up, showcasing a little less Shrek thriller and a little more, actual video games. It laid the groundwork for what Nintendo Direct would become moving forward. Because despite its humble beginnings, these videos would go on to be a big success, with fans finding it to be a great way they could engage with new Nintendo announcements. It also helped that the company wasn't afraid to show a little personality throughout these videos.
If you're an owner of Nintendo 3DS, or just thinking of becoming one. And really, if you're neither one yet, what's wrong with you?
And I think Nintendo deserves a lot of credit for latching onto the style as far back as they did. Nintendo is notoriously slow at adapting to what's trending, but this was a rare case when they were actually way ahead of the curve. They recognized the value that could come from uploading to YouTube and directly connecting with their fans in this fashion. As we moved into 2012, Nintendo was off and running with their new video presentation format and basically started spamming these things. Nintendo Directs would come monthly or sometimes even weekly, keeping in mind, of course, they weren't exactly as we know them today. As the series continued, the production value was improving, interesting sections were being added, such as developer interviews, and they were becoming genuinely entertaining, such as December 2012's Nintendo Direct, which had an animation of Lego Iwata introducing a new trailer for Lego City Undercover that was created just for this showcase. That same Direct later featured human Iwata wearing a helmet strapped with a GoPro to show off Google Maps on the Wii U gamepad instead of just directly capturing footage from it. Moments like these gave so much charm to the early Directs. They felt so different to a normal gaming showcase. It came across more like members of Nintendo were coming together to make silly YouTube videos, trying to think of funny jokes or bits that could entertain the audience. It was an intimate look into the human side of the company that we had never really seen before. As Iwata always said, these videos were meant as a way to bring information directly to the Nintendo fan, and that vision was being achieved to perfection. The next big moment for Nintendo Direct came the following year in 2013, when Nintendo made the shocking announcement that they would be skipping their yearly E3 showcase in favor of a Nintendo Direct. The Electronic Entertainment Expo was once the biggest gaming event of the year, where every company would come to show off the latest and greatest they had to offer. The most prominent companies would even hold massive press conferences with giant screens, flashing lights, and celebrity appearances to garner as much attention as possible. It was an event for going big or going home, almost becoming a status symbol as much as it was a gaming showcase. This was especially true for the three console manufacturers, who would always try to one-up each other and compete to see who the internet would crown winner of E3. It was an event so impactful that it was unimaginable a company like Nintendo would ever skip out on the tradition, but in 2013, they did just that. They still had their usual presence on the E3 show floor, but instead of an expensive live press conference, they went for a simple E3 branded Nintendo Direct. In terms of of content, it was really no different from an E3 press conference, with all the same software and hardware updates you would expect. If anything, some would argue it was actually better since it skipped all the fluff of trying to fill a stage event and just funneled us to game trailer after game trailer. I personally missed the spectacle of an E3 showcase, but I also totally understood why Nintendo was doing it. Why spend millions of dollars renting out a theater, preparing a live event, and coordinating developer appearances when you can just edit together a YouTube video? Not to mention, you were removing any of the risks associated with a live event. Because while E3 was most famous for game announcements, it was also pretty well known for things going wrong. Teleprompter mishaps, freezing game demos, or failed motion controls were frequently the most viewed clips of any E3. Fans absolutely loved it, but companies were of course probably not thrilled when moments like this happened. With a pre-recorded Nintendo Direct, that danger was gone for a significantly cheaper price while still promoting your games to just as many people. When you lay it out like that, it's pretty easy to see why they went down this road. And so from that day forward, Nintendo Direct became Nintendo's go-to media event, and has pretty much been their only form of public presentation since, with a few rare exceptions, such as the Switch 1 presentation. As we moved into the Switch era, Nintendo Direct remained a key part of Nintendo's business model, although their frequency did begin to slow down. There were less smaller, dedicated Directs, which was honestly long overdue. Not every game needed a video branded as a Nintendo Direct like what they were doing in the 3DS and Wii U days. Once the branding started to be used more sparingly, a pattern started to form. Generally speaking, fans could expect a traditional Direct each February, June, and September. There would still be occasional one-offs here and there, such as Indie World Directs, partner showcases, or Pokemon Presents, but the mainline Directs filled with the biggest announcements would come in these 3 specific months. The uniformity of their release schedule also reflected the product itself, as they became far more simplified. There was less focus on funny skits or developer interviews, and was pretty much just a bunch of game trailers edited together. Part of the reason for this was because the 2 men who had originally led the initiative were no longer there, with Iwata passing away in 2015 and Reggie retiring in 2019. Trying to recreate the vibe they brought to the show would have felt forced, and I'm glad they didn't do it. And ultimately, this larger focus on the actual announcements themselves is a sign of a much healthier Nintendo who have a lot more going right for them than they did back in the 2010s. They aren't trying to fill time or distract you from their console not selling, they had everything going great with the Switch. So while Nintendo Directs were not as endearing as they used to be, they were still great showcases. It was fun looking forward to every February, June, and September, knowing exciting Nintendo announcements were right around the corner. However, in recent years, this schedule has also changed, leaving some fans absolutely distraught. It all started in 2024, when Nintendo missed their February slot, holding a partner showcase focused on third-party games instead. They also did not have a Direct in September of that year. Most assumed this was a one-time thing, though. We all knew Nintendo was gearing up for their next console, and until that new generation was revealed, there were a whole lot of games in development they simply could not talk about yet. In 2025, the Direct schedule remained off balance, but again, we assumed this was due to the announcement and release timeline of the Switch 2. In September 2025, they did have a Direct as expected, and all seemed normal again as we continued into the Switch 2's first full year on the market. But then, the exact opposite happened. Nintendo did not hold a traditional Nintendo Direct in February 2026, instead opting for yet another partner showcase. Since then, we've gotten an Indie World event, Pokemon Presents, and even 2 separate Mario Galaxy movie Directs, but still not the big one fans have been itching for, and some are not coping with this extended wait particularly well. Over the last few months, I have seen countless videos, tweets, and news articles freaking out over this missing Nintendo Direct. Some even feel it's a sign that Nintendo must not have anything ready to talk about, and thus have concluded the Switch 2 generation has been lackluster so so far, but I don't know if that's a fair assessment. When we look around the industry, we can see that Nintendo is not alone here. PlayStation's video presentations, which they call State of Play, have also become more infrequent. Meanwhile, their bigger and grander PlayStation Showcase branding has disappeared entirely. And then there's Xbox, who hold just one first-party showcase a year with one or maybe two partner previews sprinkled in. All around the gaming world, we can see that developers and publishers at large are saying less than ever before. I think there are a few key reasons for this new trend. The first is that companies realize there isn't a whole lot of benefit to talking about games for years and years before their release. During the E3 era, those with press conferences always had to make sure they came prepared with a lot of exciting stuff to show. So there was sometimes a pressure to announce games early to boost their perceived success of the event. But we've seen how that can come back to bite you. Games like The Last Guardian or Metroid Prime 4 that got revealed way too early ended up being massive headaches for the studios involved. And oftentimes, an absurdly long wait adds a perceived expectation of the game's quality that is quite difficult to live up to. Companies have learned all that strife is simply not necessary. Marketing a game for years doesn't seem to matter that much when you can just shoot off a couple social media posts that get viewed by millions of people at the snap of a finger. You could even say that not showing games until closer to launch is actually more beneficial, since it doesn't give audiences time to dissect the game or find potential problems with it. We are in an era of gaming discourse that is more negative than ever before. People seem to thrive off tearing games down, and with social media algorithms pushing this kind of rhetoric, there's never been a larger incentive to be miserable. Holding showcases opens yourself up to these kinds of people, giving them ammo for videos ranting about how terrible it was, or to get their tweets off complaining that the company has fallen off. Meanwhile, there is an excitement that comes from a shorter release cycle or even a shadow drop that has proven very effective. Speaking of, I kid you not, literally as I was typing this section, Nintendo randomly dropped a Star Fox Direct with like 10 minutes notice before it aired. In it, they announced a new game that will launch just around 1 month from now. If that isn't full-on proof this company is moving away from long-term marketing cycles, I don't know what is. If you're somehow not convinced, let's look at how they've handled other recent and upcoming releases. On March 27th, 2025, Nintendo released a new smartphone app titled Nintendo Today, which would quickly become every Nintendo Direct fan's worst nightmare. The app is a Nintendo-themed digital calendar, offering bits of Nintendo info each day. But the app is more than just a stream of Nintendo fun facts. It is also a way for Nintendo to promote new announcements. In the introduction video for Nintendo Today, Miyamoto even straight up compares it to Nintendo Directs, stating the app will bring new information directly to you each day. And despite this very blatant statement, fans have, for some reason, still been shocked to see the app being utilized in that way. Nintendo Today was used to announce release dates for the Legend of Zelda movie and Rhythm Heaven Groove, and it was even home to the exclusive first reveal of Splatoon Raiders on Switch 2. These were 3 announcements that no doubt could have taken place during a Nintendo Direct, but were instead unveiled on Nintendo Today. The question at this point becomes, is that really such a good idea? I'm not sure I totally understand what Nintendo is trying to gain with Nintendo Today. It's a totally free app, and as far as I can tell, doesn't have any ads, so there's no monetary gain. You do need to have a Nintendo account, so I guess they're probably scraping some data from you. But other than that, the only real reasoning I can see is that they want to totally control the flow of information. They don't want you using third-party platforms to get your Nintendo info, they want you on their proprietary service. But that just seems like a super unrealistic goal. And with anything noteworthy from Nintendo Today immediately being screenshotted and posted to Twitter anyway, you could actually argue Nintendo is losing even more control, because now I'm seeing these announcements from other people posting it instead of Nintendo just tweeting it themselves or uploading a video to their official channels. But regardless of the reason for Nintendo Today's existence, instance, it's not a coincidence that the output of Directs has slowed right alongside this new app. It's clearly what Nintendo wants to do going forward, with large-scale Directs being far more infrequent, perhaps even just once a year. My opinion on that new ideology is a bit mixed. On the one hand, I love Nintendo Directs. They're fun and remind me of the days when I was a Nintendo-obsessed kid playing on my 3DS. Additionally, Nintendo Directs give a true sense of community, as every Nintendo fan clears their schedule to make sure they can catch the show. Perhaps they watch along with friends, or their favorite streamer. Maybe they even watch at the Nintendo store and celebrate with other fans in real life. That is the main aspect we lose when Nintendo drops random announcements on Today, or when they air a Star Fox Direct with 10 minutes notice. And I do recognize that can feel a little deflating, but at the same time, I don't know if I agree with the people acting like Nintendo's announcements don't have value unless it's shown in a Nintendo Direct. When Splatoon Raiders got announced, the prevailing response was basically just, why wasn't this saved for a Direct? But the format it's presented in is not changing the game itself. If you would have been excited for Splatoon Raiders during a Nintendo Direct, I see no reason why you wouldn't also be excited for it from Nintendo Today or a standalone YouTube video. And if you're telling me your excitement is legitimately lower, then I think you might like Nintendo Directs more than you actually like video games. Nintendo Directs have been a core part of the Nintendo fan experience for 15 years. To see them going away, or at the very least becoming less of a focus, is certainly sad, but I can't lie, the obsession over them has become a bit much. We're in a time period of gaming where there is more to play than ever before. It's impossible to keep up with all the great games getting released constantly. So sitting around complaining that Nintendo hasn't announced the new 3D Mario or mainline Zelda yet, when we know for a fact those things will inevitably come eventually, just feels like a massive waste of time. And we don't need to diminish the announcements we are getting just because they appear on an app instead of in a Nintendo Direct. I feel pretty confident that the big, large-scale General Direct fans have been longing for will come in June, but I also wouldn't be surprised if that's the only one of its kind we get this year. It's an adjustment that is going to take some time to get used to, but when the dust settles, I think we'll find this isn't such a bad thing after all. Personally, I would much rather hear about a new Star Fox and get to play it in a few weeks than learn about Rhythm Heaven Groove and a Direct and wait a year and a half. Frankly, unless you're a content creator desperate for things to talk about, I'm really not sure why anyone would feel differently. I will always appreciate the history of Nintendo Direct, and I can confidently say these showcases helped form my love for video games and deepen my understanding of the industry, but I also don't think that they are some mystical thing that needs to live on forever. They are just a fancy compilation of game trailers at the end of the day. If anything, the slower output might actually improve Directs, as they will potentially have more bigger announcements per show and won't have to scramble to try and fill time. We'll have to wait and see what exactly the future of Nintendo Direct will look like, but Nintendo has made it pretty clear they are cutting back. Continuing to hope for anything different seems like a losing battle at this point. Or, I don't know, maybe they'll start doing them monthly again just to spite me and this video will age worse than them forgetting about Mario. I guess we'll have to wait and see.